14-year-old kid on the Great Highway, and I looked behind me. There's a cop car. Turned on his lights. I went, oh, and I had the bright idea. I'm going to run from this cop.
Welcome to 45 on the Hour podcast. I'm your host, Colt 45, and I'm here with our professor, Erik Medina.
Hey, what's up? Good morning, Colt.
What's up, bro?
Good morning. Today we have a guest, one of my professors, Professor Will Leong. Hello, sir.
What's up, Professor? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks
We just
for having
jumped
me.
right into it.
Awesome. Glad to be
It always
here.
works like that. Always works like that. So we'll get right into it. I know that you're one of Jean-Jacques' black belts, right? You've been doing this a long time,
20,
which is
25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. But do you want to go into the history first? Because I'm kind of curious about his background in history.
So I've met Will when I first started jiu-jitsu. This has been like 2011, 2010 maybe. And you're always like a super cool dude to me. In my world, Colt, like if you're a beast on the mat, you're a champion, right? Like, you know, if you're a black belt and you're killing other black belts that are champions, like you're that. Will did not go the competition route. So to me, he was always like a little enigma. Like you could do it, but like you're not chasing the because I always thought like you're a competitor or you're a teacher, you know, if you're a black belt. Like, but there's this black belt out there that's not that, and he's a beast. And I was always intrigued. Later on, I found out a little bit about his story, his background. He's a true martial artist. He's trained with, you said Guru Dan Inosanto. That's Bruce Lee's oldest student, the one who like inherited a lot of the teachings of Jeet Kune Do. And just like, you know, will you please tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, we're super intrigued about your background, brother, and your martial arts status, and kind of like I kind of like what you were saying. Like he kind of like was this like super badass that just never competed, but you knew he was a badass.
He was a mystery to me.
Yeah,
He
right.
was a mystery to me.
Yeah. So tell us a little about yourself, brother.
Well, thanks for the compliment. It's super badass. I don't know if that's me, but thank you. No, I just, you know, I think because I was, I work in the stunt industry, so I never really had the time to commit to being a full-time competitor.
Mm-hmm.
So, but back to your question. I grew up in the streets of San Francisco.
How old are you?
64.
You're 64? You look young, man, for 64. He does, man. He looks like early 50s, I was going to say, at least.
Well, you know what they say about Asian, right? Asians don't
age, bro.
Asians don't ration. But growing up in San Francisco, I was a chubby little kid, wore glasses, funny haircut. So I got picked on a little bit, and I just kind of took it. You know, at some point, you say, I'm going to learn some kung fu and defend myself. So I guess after when I became a teenager, that's what I did. I jumped into karate, and just never stopped. I think I stopped when I was 17, and when I moved to LA, I started up again, which is like maybe 10 years later. But when I started up, I got connected with a lot of good quality, high profile martial art instructors. I was training under Sensei Jean LaBelle, the late Sensei Jean LaBelle, for a couple of years in judo. And it was just kind of a hobby for me because I never wanted to really get into judo. I think because I wanted to get into stunt work. And Jean LaBelle was giving a judo class at the LA City College. So I was under Jean. I think the first day there, I broke my toe.
Oh, man.
Yeah, judo was no joke, boy. So I was with there for probably a year and a half. And then from there, I just went to, I think, I did some other training, and I went into Guru Dan Inosanto.
Inosanto, right?
Inosanto.
Yeah, I've heard of those guys.
Yeah, the title Guru is Tagalog for Sifu, which is Sifu in Chinese, Sensei in Japanese. In Filipino, in Tagalog, is Guru. So Guru Dan Inosanto was Bruce Lee's protege.
Holy smokes.
So they were, I think they were best friends and all that. I don't know too much of the history.
Inosanto's still around, right?
He's still here. He's still teaching. He's incredible.
How old is he?
I don't know. Probably, I would say.
Good guess.
Definitely 80s. Definitely 80s. If not close to,
look him up.
close to late 80s, I would say. Incredible He's actually a black belt under our jiu-jitsu system as well too.
Wow.
He's a black belt under the Machados.
Yes.
88 years old.
88.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he got
Yeah, I've seen him in pictures with Jean-Jacques.
Jean-Jacques, yeah. He got his black belt in, I think it was 4 years,
Oh, wow.
where it took me, 10 years.
I'm a 10-year black belt, too.
Yeah, the average for the average guy is about 10 years
To get a black belt.
to achieve your black belt. Yeah, just that's just the ranking system. That's just the way it falls. And Guru Dan got his black belt in about 4 years, just because he was taking privates from all the different brothers. And I heard that when I was training at the
Dan Santos got his black belt in 4 years.
4 years.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah,
How does it even work? That's like a belt every 6 months or something, right?
Well, he was
Or
taking
something.
That's taking
crazy.
private lessons from each of the brothers. Sometimes he would take several private lessons from each of the brothers. So he was getting a lot of teaching,
One-on-one.
one-on-ones from different points of view from Machados, from some different brothers. Because each of the brothers, even though jiu-jitsu is primarily, we know what jiu-jitsu is, but each person teaches and trains jiu-jitsu differently. Like if you look at all the brothers and the Machado brothers, they have a different game. Higgin is they're all world champions, and they all play. They all have their own different game. Just like you and I think we have a different game.
Yeah, we could come from the same school, but we each have a different flavor almost.
Focus.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went to Inasano for probably from 92 to 97, 98. And while I was there, I trained under many guys. Damon Caro, who is a kind of a famous second unit director now. He works primarily for Zack Snyder. He did the 300 series, and from there I went to Erik Paulson.
Okay.
I trained under Erik Paulson. So he was my second introduction to grappling. So I studied. I trained with him for shoot wrestling.
Shoot wrestling, catch wrestling with him.
Catch wrestling, or they call it Shudo, which is what Josh Barnett was also basically, to give you an idea. And then at that time I was also doing the Silat, the Kali.
So you train grappling, striking, weapons, all sorts of everything, right?
Yeah, at the Inasanto Academy, they cross train a lot. That was the beautiful thing about their academy, is that you can learn so many different arts in a single day. You can learn. You can take 5 to 6 different classes, and they're all different. There's stand up, there's takedowns, there's grappling, there's stick fighting, there's knife fighting.
When I find somebody that's trained different martial arts, not just one, I find that they are full of different philosophies. Each martial art teaches you like a little bit of a different way to move your body, to move through the world, to see something,
I was going to ask you that about age. I was trying to look up Dan's Instagram, but I can't log in here. I have to log in from here. But in martial arts, how do you deal with it as you age? Like, because you've done so much martial arts stuff and different variations, obviously sounds like a little bit of kung fu.
Yeah.
Maybe you did boxing or wrestling. You've done all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
How do you deal with that with age? Does it just does your jiu-jitsu change? I know they say like, what does Jean-Jacques say? He says your jiu-jitsu changes, or when, I don't know, something about age and being graceful. I don't know. He has a bunch of stuff. But I had something on my mind. I just totally blacked out. But what do you think about that? Like aging, like, and then like, does your art change, or does it change, or like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I think
I can only imagine, like, at 41 right now, like sometimes when I'm done with like rolling with this guy or rolling with any of the guys, like sometimes I just feel beat up a little bit,
But that's the good part about exercising. Feeling beaten up and going home kind of tells me that you're alive, that you just worked out. Is your body telling you, "Oh, let's relax now"? That's me. I feel good. If I go home and I don't feel like my body's reacting to anything, then I'm not pushing myself hard enough at the gym. No pain, no gain, right?
Right, absolutely.
Right. But no, when you get old, I think for me, your body tells you what you want to do.
I guess it's a better question. Sorry, a better question is probably how do you do jujitsu now than you did when you were 40? Like, is it the same? Are you still do you do 3 days a week, 5 days a week? Like, what's your normal schedule?
I still pretty much go 3 times a week unless I'm out of town for a project or something like that.
Like, when do you go? Like at lunch or something?
I go Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at lunchtime. if I skip a day for whatever reason, then I'll make it on a Saturday, or I can also go at nighttime as well too. But I try to go 3 times a week. Some like I recently took a month off for some personal reasons. So I took a month off, had a job up in Napa Valley, a film job. So I took another week off of that. Then when I came back, I jumped right in. And then when you come back in, you just kind of feel like my body just woke up. You feel like I'm glad to be back. You know, the good thing about when you go to, for me, when at our school, is that we always have a decent number of people on the mat, and you can target your training. Like if today I want to go after, if I want a really hard workout, I'll go after the toughest guy that I consider that's safe and the tough guy.
Usually that's me.
That is true. That is true. Or sometimes if you want to just be technical, you can kind of focus on maybe training with some of the lower belts or smaller guys. That's not to say that the lower belts are a walk in the park. Some lower belts, they're tough. They come from a wrestling background and they're just a white belt. I know this guy who's 190 pounds, and he was a wrestler, and when you go with him, you feel like you're going with the purple belt. So
They're always dangerous. Well, what was maybe some of the first work that you've done in stunts, and like how did that, open up your world, and how did you even get started in that?
I think just being a kind of a rambunctious, if I could find a better term, kid in San Francisco running around I started riding motorcycles when I was 11 years old.
Whoa.
I think I bought my first motorcycle, maybe it was 11 or 12. I bought my first motorcycle before I even had a license. And I never rode the bike. I stored it in my mom's garage, and I was trying to fix it. And thank goodness it wasn't running. I bought a bike that wasn't running, and I kept it in there. And then my second bike I bought was probably a year later. So I was like 13 before I had a license. And I was riding it, learning to ride it. So I was very much a defensive rider because I didn't have a license. And I remember back in those days, I was probably 14 years old riding a motorcycle down the Great Highway in San Francisco. And I was, as they call it, you want to clear out your engine. So you just want to pull the throttle, open up the throttle, and just ride it until just kind of clean out the engine, the carburetors a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm riding and I'm just giving a little gas, and I'm a 14-year-old kid on the Great Highway, and I look behind me, there's a cop car. Turn on his lights. I went, oh. And I had the bright idea I'm going to run from this cop.
Oh, shit.
I'm on a
Here we go.
motorcycle. I'm 14 years old. Back then you didn't wear helmets, right? So I got off the highway, and I went through the side street, and then the cop turned the corner. He came after me, and I went about a block, and I said, I'm going to get away. Somewhere between the first block and the end of the first block, I came to the realization, just pull over. So I pulled over, and the cop car came up, and he could see because I didn't have a helmet on. This is before pre-helmet. And he looked at me, and I think he could see that if he checked on my license or the fact that I didn't have a license, he would have to confiscate the motorcycle, write up a huge report. But he was cool. He just said, hey, you should slow up a little bit. And I went, okay. And he took off. He let me go.
Well, that was your get out of jail free card. You used it.
It was. But because I was riding motorcycles, doing weird, crazy things like that as a
in your free time, yeah.
Yeah, as a kid. And that just kind of parlayed into me as an adult wanting to get into a job that I can be just as active. I think if I wasn't a stuntman, I would probably be a cop. I thought being a cop was very exciting. Chasing bad guys, as long as, chasing bad guys and stuff like that. So
I get it. Cool, very cool. What movies or shows have you been part of?
Oh, there's been a lot of them.
I was gonna say, man. So like being a stuntman, like that's a pretty risky job, isn't it?
It is.
So you do jujitsu and then you're a stuntman? Because a lot of the stunt guys that I've met, right, and I have a friend of mine that does stunts. We went off air and talked about that, and I know they get hurt a lot. Like he got hurt. He had like a really bad shoulder injury that he was like trying to overcome. But the insurance is great, so he got like the best care and whatnot. But still, like you're constantly getting hurt. You get caught on fire sometimes. Like you got to do everything. So what? Let's talk about some of the people that you've done stunts for, because I'm kind of curious about that. So who have you worked with or for or whatever? Like big names that people would know. Like actors, things like that.
Actors, Cameron Diaz, Lucy Liu, Drew Barrymore, and the Charlie's Angels series. I did the Rush Hour series, Rush Hour 1, 2, and 3 with
that's cool.
with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker.
That's pretty cool.
And you could see me in some of the DVDs. Tom Cruise, I did 5 of his movies. Who else? Will Smith, Chuck Norris. I was on Hawaii Five-0. And the cool thing about Hawaii Five-0, for example, they fly you to Hawaii. So you make a little mini vacation out of it as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the fun part about it. Pretty much a lot of the actors out there, I've never worked with Steven Seagal.
Is he the real deal?
Yeah, he's and from what I know, I don't have a problem. I know a lot of stunt guys have an issue with him.
Why?
He has a track record of of hitting people.
Mm.
So
he is the real deal.
maybe he's rough. Is
a little bit more the real deal, right?
Well, it's also difficult when you come in to a project as the star and no one can touch you, but then you can touch them. You can hit them, but they can't hit you back, so to say. That's the problem I see, but not just with him, is with other actors, is they get this. Sometimes they hit you, you can't hit them back. So you kind of take it with a grain of salt and say, oh, this is part of the job. You get hit. So, but Steven Seagal, he hit a lot of guys, stunt guys, and supposedly you're standing there having a meeting, like a little chat, safety meeting, chat session. And I've never seen it, but I heard he was, sometimes he just go off and whack you. So you got to wear your cup when you go to these meetings. So he might just kick you somewhere that you don't expect.
Sounds like a great person to work with.
Like in the nuts or something, or what?
Yeah, well, that's what. Yeah, you wear your cup. So supposedly he did that. I've never seen it. He's never done it to me. He's always been, from the short amount of time or the limited amount of time I've met him, he's been nice to me.
I'd be the dude to catch that dude. I'd be like, Steven, no, that's not flying.
I remember seeing him one time at a studio at one of the studios, sound stages, and he was probably maybe
Steven Seagal.
He was probably 25 feet away from me, and me with a martial arts background. When I saw him, he looked at me, and I looked at him, and we made eye contact, and I just bowed to him because he's my senior. He's accomplished, senior not in age wise, but senior as far as what he's accomplished in the martial arts world. He's in a place, or was in a place, where we all would love to be the movie star on a show. That's why we're in it. But because we couldn't make it, or I would say me, because I can't make it there, I am more of a stunt man. And I would love to be, the lead on the role, beating up people. But I think really the safe part for me is just to be a stunt man. I feel comfortable playing that part. I'm good at what I do. I'm safe about it. So,
what are some of the more dangerous stunts that you've been part of?
There's been a lot of them. I'm on the back of the motorcycle.
You ever been caught on fire?
I have actually.
Yeah.
Chances are when you do fire burns, there's a high percentage that you're going to get singed or burnt. It just goes with the territory. It's like when you go scuba diving or you go in the water, you're going to get wet.
Right.
So when you do a fire burn, if you go out, if you finish your fire burn, you do your fire burn, and you go unscathed, that's a good day. Chances are a lot of times you get a little singed because it gets hot. I've only probably done maybe 3 partial burns in my career, so I haven't done a lot of them, but I've done 3, and I think I got singed on almost all of them. And so dangerous, pretty challenging was on the back of the motorcycle for the Matrix, the Matrix Reloaded.
Oh yeah. I remember that scene.
The second Matrix on the back of the motorcycle. So I was on that was pretty scary, going against traffic, and I'm not riding. I'm just a passenger. But the rider was a world class. What do they call it? She's a world class rider, Debbie Evans, and as very quickly I gained confidence. I was very comfortable being on the back of the bike. She's
trusted her.
She's amazing. She was amazing. She really was the only person who could have ridden the bike the way she did. I mean, she handles that bike and she cuts those turns so sharp. It's but being behind her on the back of the bike, we still got hit. I think we went down once by accident. We were going against traffic, and they had 50 stunt people coming at us, and they had 100 extras outside. So we were going through driving a pattern.
I remember this is like when it's like a freeway chase, and you guys are like, this is where the twins are and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Too, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So we were going through this pattern, and this is a big pattern. I mean, this car to the left barely missing to the right. There's zigzags and everything. And somewhere along the way, we just the cue got miscued, and we got clipped by one of the cars.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So we laid the bike down, and we laid the bike down. I remember thinking to myself that once we got hit, it jolted the motorcycle. It hit me on my left knee, and I had a hard knee pad on, and I still have the knee pad. It's cracked.
Oh.
But I kept it just because it came from the Matrix, and so I remember thinking to myself that she was going to save the bike. So I know we went off course, and we were going towards the K rail, which is basically the K rails, the medium for the freeway scene.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going towards that, and actually we were going against the wall. The K rail was behind us, and I remember thinking to myself at one point, "Oh, she's going to save the motorcycle." I just felt it, and then next thing you know, we're down on the ground, and cars are coming at us, whatever, and they're all stopping as best they can. One of the guys driving the semi truck, who's a stunt driver, he stopped the semi, and he says, "I couldn't even see you guys. I thought you guys were underneath the semi."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it
That could have been bad.
It got that close.
Okay.
The reason I mentioned that I thought she was going to save the motorcycle, because there was a camera bike, a motorcycle behind us with a camera mounted on the side, looking at us. And at one point, you saw my arm release from my safety.
Harness or
It's called
tether?
webbing. I put a piece of webbing around the tank to hold, so that way I can. Anyways, so I remember when I thought she was laying it down on the left side, the camera bike behind me showed me that my arm came out to try to catch the ground, and good thing I didn't, because the bike went down that way. So if I would have went down, it would probably
Snapped your arm.
could.
Your arm would have got trapped underneath.
right, exactly. But at some point, I brought my arm back up, and it was because I thought to myself that she was saving the bike. I don't remember doing that, but I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why I brought my arm back up. Probably because I felt that she was going to save the bike. So that's why I mentioned that thought process, that I thought she was going to save the bike. So that probably instinctively brought my arm back in.
You use your body in a way of like putting it on the line for the film, putting it on the line for like to create the shot. And like you said, like, if you play with fire, you're going to get burned, you're going to get singed. So, do you kind of expect to take some bumps in this line of work? You have to, right?
Yeah, you know what? That's why I'm in this business, because it's like a kid that never grew up. I literally love what I do. I got the freedom to go on. There's never two of the same job.
Mm-hmm.
Two jobs. One day you're riding a motorcycle, and next day you're driving a car. Next day you're jumping out of a window. Next day you could just be a passenger in a restaurant scene where guys are running past you. You never know. Sometimes they don't even tell you when you take the job and you accept. On Avengers, for example, they told me I was gonna, do you ride motorcycles? Can you lay a motorcycle down? And this is on the movie Avengers Endgame. So they contacted me, and they said, we're looking for someone to lay down a motorcycle, which I have done in probably 2 other film projects, TV and film projects. And so I said, yeah, I can do that. So they wanted my videos. They wanted to see, videos of me laying down a motorcycle. They asked whether I live in, where's my home based at? So am I going to be hired as a local in Georgia, or are they going to fly me out? All those questions. So I sent them video. I told them where I'm based out of, and okay, great. Well, a week before I travel, they tell me that it's going to be a 60-mile-an-hour laydown. And I go, what? Well, that's what I heard. I said, 60 mile an hour? That's crazy. But, if you do a motorcycle laydown correctly anyways, you're going to scruff off probably 20 miles by the time you lay the bike down. So you're really laying it down about 35 or something like that,
Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But you don't know what you're taking when you accept the job. Is what I'm saying. Sometimes you after you accept the job, can you ride a motorcycle? Can you lay it down? Yes. Well, now you get all the information after you agree to it, and they sometimes they don't even know what the scene involves because they just know they want a motorcycle crash here. So, and then after you accept the job and they understand what's going on, now they tell you, okay, we want you to ride through camera at 60 miles an hour and so on and so forth. I get out there. They say to me in this motorcycle scene, they say, okay, we're going to put a passenger on the back of your motorcycle. I said, well, really? They're going to wet down. And I talked to the passenger and I said, have you ever been on a bike before? And she says, I've never been on a motorcycle.
Oh, great. So then that level of anxiety is up there.
Right. And so I take her to the parking lot and I give her a crash course on how to be a passenger. When I lean to the right, you just lean with me. When I lean to the left, that kind of stuff. So I get back on set and we're, before we go during rehearsal, the day before, they said they're going to wet down the pavement. So now I got a wet pavement and a passenger that has never been on a motorcycle. And then they said, well, there's going to be camera and actors, camera operators going past in front of you. Mm-hmm. So you can't hit anybody, right? So everyone's in front of you. I got to watch them. I got to watch her. The ground's wet, and they want me to lay a motorcycle down. The day before I'm getting ready to do all this stuff here, they said, you know what? We're not going to lay the motorcycle down.
Oh,
we want you to just ride past camera. And there was another guy, he rolled past camera. And after we rolled past camera, they had a sound effect of a crash. And the next scene is me on the ground already and the bike already laid down.
okay.
Yeah, so that's the safest way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So you still had a full night of anxiety and like worry and stress, though.
I kind of accepted that a little bit. And I said, we're going to go for it. Let's go. And I don't know. I just kind of went for it, and I felt comfortable that I knew what I was going to do. It was going to hurt a little bit, but I go into these jobs knowing that you're going to take a bump and a bruise. What you don't want to do is have major issues like breaking something or cracking your head open or something like that. Those to me, those are unacceptable. Getting bumps and bruises, that is part of the. It's like going to the gym and training jiu-jitsu. You're gonna leave there with a little bump and bruise and a sore shoulder now and then. So yeah,
but no catastrophic injuries.
That's the main. That's the main.
The difference between safety and just doing it.
Oh, we all want to. Right, we all want to go home. We all want to go home. It's a job, But luckily, it's a job. It's a career that I love, and a lot of guys. If you don't love this work, you're not going to put up with. You train, you go to the gym and you train parkour, you train gymnastics, you train martial arts, you train jiu-jitsu. Like me, I just happen to love jiu-jitsu, which I've been doing for about 25 years. But as a fight choreographer, I use it in my choreography all the time. Mm-hmm. When I choreograph movies that are based out of with MMA or cage fights, the jiu-jitsu come in handy.
You're speaking from firsthand experience from that authenticity of all those years on the mats.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's people being a black belt choreographing these fights that helps me. But then again, there are people who are purple belts that can choreograph a fight scene as well too, because they understand the philosophy or the physics of jiu-jitsu and how to incorporate. They just have to understand the boxing, the kickboxing, the Muay Thai, which I study a lot of those arts, so it helps
create the fight scene.
Yes, yeah.
What do you enjoy more, or is there a thing that I could say working in a fight scene or like a stunt?
There, each one I would love. You get a different adrenaline rush for each of those. I think when you perform a stunt, it's on. When you perform in a stunt, you're on.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit before, like the difference between the similarity between getting ready for a match, that anxiety that builds up, and then getting ready for a scene. It's you have to be dialed in, you got to be ready to go, and you're waiting for that cue.
I'm always nervous. I've I'm always nervous before I do perform a stunt. I think that's why I do this, because it tests myself. I think I mentioned to you guys earlier that, I have a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? I have a lot of trepidation in life.
Okay.
I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that.
Never heard that word before. Trepidation?
Yeah, that's when you're.
Look that up.
you're
Yeah, me too. I was not.
Learn something new every day, bro. Like, what is trepidation?
trepidation. It's when you're kind of nervous and you're afraid of certain things. You're
Yeah, it is a word. That's crazy.
Yeah. So this career is really just so perfect for me, because it tests me and allows me to get those anxiety.
That's a word, man. Holy smokes! I'm all crazy over this one word, trepidation. I've never even said that word before. I heard it. English language is a mystery language. There's so many dang words that can describe so many dang
Exactly.
so specific.
Exactly.
That's why it's like the universal language, right?
Yeah. 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 No, but I think it's this career is really right up my alley, because I am, kind of like, I have trepidation about things in life,
So it forces you to confront those things.
It does.
Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and what happens after you complete it and you do a good job, you just feel like so good, like
Whenever
whoa.
you conquer a fear, like it feels awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, you're that's like something that maybe most people don't understand. And it's something that, like, I like that because it does make me feel more alive.
Yeah, it's like, like you train in jiu-jitsu. When you get on the mat and you tap someone, or you beat somebody, or you control someone who you've never done before, or you catch him, like you're excellent with the darts choke. You're excellent with a lot of techniques, but you're known as the darts knight.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you're excellent with the darts choke, which is I remember when you first became a black belt, because I outweigh you and I've been on the mat longer than you. I felt like I could control you. And I remember that one day you caught me in a darts choke, and I went, no. And as you cinched in the choke, I went, no, he's actually going to get me. No. And I started freaking out. And I remember I had to tap to you, and and you got me. And I was thinking, like, wow, he got me. But when you accomplish something like that, don't you feel like, whoa,
Yeah,
it's
cool. It keeps it. Offense and defense are very important, and I feel sometimes like when you're actually doing your jiu-jitsu, like that's the best feeling. You're in the flow. You're like, everything's working correctly, and maybe it doesn't matter who's in front of you, but definitely, like, the bigger the fish, like the more you enjoy the kill.
Well, also too, I remember you and we talked about this when I first got here a little while ago, and you and I were rolling, and you took my back, and I got you in some kind of a heel lock, and we were going light, right? But look at the relationship that we've created from that one match that we had.
Yeah,
you and I have talked about it several times already, and our master John Jack, he saw it, and and
just for some context for everybody listening in, like, I was on Professor Will's back. He did some ninja stuff, and he was on my ankle real quick. And the way that he had my ankle, the only thing that could move was my knee. And I moved the wrong way. I could have blown out my knee. And when he felt that, he let me go rather than hold on to me. So he, relieved the pressure to save my knee. Just so happens that John Jock's watching this whole thing go down, and he gets up and he has to come over here and be like, hey, like, Erik, like, that was a dumb thing you did, that was the wrong way out, essentially.
Correct. He did say that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought John Jack was walking towards me like, good job, Will. You let him go. He walked right past me right after you. After you.
Yeah, for sure.
And the reason why that meant something to me was because I think a couple of weeks prior to that, I was rolling with another fellow student, and he was forcing some techniques with strength rather than being technical, and we injured his knee, and he was walking around with a crutch for a little bit, and I felt bad. I mean, I never go in there with
in the intent to hurt anybody.
No, even for a submission. I don't care about the submission. It's the experience I want, and I don't want my training partners, my friends, even people I don't know. I'm not, I'm not that kind of guy that I want to go in there and prove my ego by hurting people. No, I want to be submitted. I want to learn how you got me, and I want to learn the technical ways to get out of it for the next time. That's my rush right there. But yeah, but jiu-jitsu comes in handy with my choreography as well too.
You had a little bit of a story when we first walked in here regarding like you've been there at John Jock's 25 years you said, or
about 25 I think.
25?
Yeah, 99 is about when
so
I
then
started.
like we've seen a lot of people come and go, but like you also trained like hand in hand with Joe Rogan for a lot of years too. Right? And
The Joe Rogan story.
you mentioned that you were a rigger on Fear Factor as well.
Yeah.
Tell that little story.
Okay. Well, when Fear Factor was at the height of its televising, Joe Rogan was I think he was a blue belt at our school, and I just became a blue belt, and he was a very nice guy. I don't think we talked about, because me doing stunts and he was the host of Fear Factor. We were training one day, and I was doing this thing called a half guard lockdown, and I had Joe in half guard. I don't know if
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
The Joe Rogan.
The Joe Rogan. I hope I'm not giving away too many secrets here.
Hey.
Anyways,
now you're good.
But basically, I got Joe in a half guard lockdown, and he at that time we were both blue belts, and I think he tried to pull his knee out.
When was this? 90s?
Maybe 2000, 99, 2000.
Somewhere around that.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And he tried to pull his knee out, and
He has a bad knee, right?
he had a bad knee from his years of Taekwondo. I don't know much. Joe and I were...
That dude's kicking is crazy. Have you ever seen Joe Rogan's kicks online? Bro.
Yeah.
I would not want to get hit with one of those kicks. Dude, he kicks like a bag. Not to interrupt you, but he'll kick. I've seen these videos where Joe Rogan literally kicks a bag and it flies across the room.
Oh,
like
he's
literally.
he's a real deal.
Oh, yeah. He just sits there and he's all calm too. And he's like, all right, so you go like this and then wow. And he like hits it and the bag just goes and it like launches. Like the bag's like, what do you think? How much is that heavy bag? 150, 200 pounds?
Yeah.
Something solid. Yeah,
Just solid. Just like literally. Imagine that if that was like your body or even your leg. Oh, man. You're doing a backflip like straight up.
You see that bag?
Your leg's gone.
That bag folds over when he kicks it.
It does.
Yeah.
There's a video online, and I'll never forget it. He hits it, and it literally, like, you can't even hear the impact for, like, a split second. It takes that long for it to catch up because he hits it so hard. The bag literally, like, cuts in half. It's like, and it just flies, boom, like, across the room. And you're like, whoa, what the heck? Oh, man. Joe Rogan, if you're listening, your leg is a god.
I know he had an issue with... I know there was with Wesley Snipes. I don't know the whole story. I think Joe Rogan talks about it a little bit, and they were supposed to have a match. I forget.
And what kind of match?
A cage match. They were
Holy
gonna.
shit! Wesley Snipes and Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm. There was some.
Well, maybe Wesley Snipes and Passenger 57, but other than that, I don't know.
I remember Joe Rogan during one of the UFC televising, and he says to Wesley Snipes, sign the contract. And I wanted to see what would happen,
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, that would have been great. I would love to have seen that. But no, anyways, but going back, basically I had Joe Rogan in a half guard lockdown, and he yanked his knee, and his knee separated.
Ooh.
But he did, I remember calling him the next day and saying how he was, and he says, no, man, he told me that part of it was the injury from his Taekwondo days.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then the lockdown, just him kicking out or turn. I imagine he turned, and then that's what's going to affect the knee right there.
No, I think he, from what I remember,
kicked out?
No, he just tried to pull it out. And as we know now, I know as a black belt, there's several ways to get to help get out of that move is you have to unweave the lockdown. You either unweave or as John Jack taught me, he basically pulls his knee up, points it to the ceiling.
And then uses the other foot to help clear.
Well, once you pull it to the ceiling, I don't have connection. When you lose connection, you can pretty much do what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So And I just, when I did it to John Jack one time, and I remember I had him in a lockdown, and then John Jack to me, once you do something to him, you'll never be able to do it again.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's
He adds it to his database of like what ifs.
Yeah, and this rare that I had anything I could do, but lockdown was one of my fortes.
Mm-hmm.
So I had him in a lockdown, and next time I went with him, his foot wasn't there. I went, where'd it go? And I asked him, I said, what'd you do? He says, just pull your knee up. It was amazing. It's like going up to the key maker and said, how do you get out of this door? And he just showed me the key to get out of the door. But then I told that story about Joe Rogan to my friends who were the rigging team on Fear Factor. And one day, my friends hired me as one of the riggers to come in to Fear Factor to rig for Fear Factor. So I've only done like 1 or 2 episodes of Fear Factor, just so that I don't want to take credit from the guys that have worked on it for seasons. I only went in for one or 2 episodes, and so I go to the trailer where the stunt trailer where they keep all the gear at. As I walked past the trailer, there was a little makeshift mat on the floor, a couple of 1-inch, 2-inch pad on the floor, and it was roped off with yellow tape, like do not enter, and some orange cones. And I asked them, I said, what's that for? And they were jokingly saying, oh, we want you and Joe to have a rematch, because I told them that story.
They were instigating it.
Yeah, but I thought they were kidding. I said, no, get out of here. He's the star of the show. He's not gonna wrestle with me. He said, oh no, we're gonna get him over here. I said, whatever. So I laughed it off. I did my day's work. I don't even think I saw Joe. I may have seen him probably 50 feet away. It was the closest I got to him that day. So anyway, so I saw Joe, and he did his thing, and then he left, and then at the end of the day, I went back and I was putting gear away, and said to my team, I said, to the rigging team, I said, oh, that was pretty funny. You guys pulled the joke on me. They said, oh no, we were serious about it. We were gonna during lunchtime. We were gonna get Joe come over here and have a rematch. Of course, it was never gonna happen. Joe's not gonna roll with me, but those guys told me that they were gonna plan on it. So
Does he still roll?
Yeah, he trains. He's
He's out in Texas now, so it's very rare that we see him.
Yeah.
Right. Does he still come back to Jean-Jacques?
Not really. I don't think so.
I got a question for you guys. How does Jean-Jacques, it's not even a question really. I mean, obviously he doesn't compare, but how does he compare to you guys, like in levels? So like, is it kind of like a white belt to a black belt when Jean-Jacques is a black belt to coral belt or something?
You made an analogy to the key maker earlier.
What's Jean-Jacques' thing? He has like the more you use, the less you need to know or something, or is that his thing?
The more you know, the less you need to use.
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah, the more you know, the less you need.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then like, Colt, it's just a weird like, maybe like you complete like a chapter of the book, but he wrote the book.
He did, right?
That's how it feels sometimes, because whenever I ask him like a question, sometimes he gives me such a complete answer that my question was even wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that, and I've never experienced that in any other way or in any other individual, that you are approaching such a knowledgeable person, and the way that he could explain it makes it so that you are understanding completely, and like, we're black belts. I consider myself a good instructor. That man is a really good teacher, regardless of whatever subject it is. You know what I'm saying? He's just a master teacher.
He is.
Oftentimes we refer to him like as Master Yoda. That would be like, the mix of philosophy that he infuses in you as well, to question the technique. Why are you even doing this? What did you want? Why is it stop? You have to. What's cool is I see him entertain a lot of people. If you ask a question to the class, I'd say maybe 90% already know the answer. You should almost already know the answer, but he'll entertain them. But then he'll also sprinkle in another part for the other 90% to contemplate as well. Do something that like, oh, well, we all had the right answer, but we didn't have that answer that he gave today, We weren't on that level. It's very interesting.
It's very, very deep individual. Sometimes, I remember one time I asked him years ago when I first started, and he would only give me a partial answer to an armbar.
Mm-hmm.
And then years later, he would tell me, well, if I gave you all the answer, you wouldn't even be able to comprehend it. And I was thinking like, no, just give it to me. Let me figure it out. That was my, but then I realized I keep forgetting it because I wasn't ready to comprehend the entire answer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was absolutely right. You know, I learned so much from him. I got to say, man, you know, I used to have a problem calling people master. You know, like, how are you my master? You know, so I would call him, you know, anyways. So I remember one day I rode with him, and this is when I was already his black belt. And you know, I'm a grown man. I'm, you know, regular strength and regular whatever. I'm not like, you know, handicap or anything like that. Just, you know, just a stunt man, do my job, pretty physical. But I rode with him, and I remember him submitting me 4 times in a 5-minute session. And his submission was not just an armbar or a leg lock. It was like, if I didn't stop, he was either going to break my neck or my shoulder. It was one of those kind of submissions. And that's when I realized, this guy's a master. You know, and that's when I started calling him. That's when I started calling him master, because 4 times in 5 minutes, and I'm a grown man, and he could literally, he could have killed me 4 times, basically.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
And he wasn't even going 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's the worst part is, you know, he's not going 100%, and you are. And I do all my other things. Like, I'm a world champion. Like, I consider myself elite. Nope, doesn't do nothing to him. If I last a round, I'm so proud of myself. That really doesn't happen. Oh, you know?
Like I said, I got tapped out 4 times. So if you survived, you know, and
yeah, that doesn't really happen. Yeah. Survival is no option.
So that's why I think I still do. I train in jiu-jitsu, because I've never really gotten to a point to where, I don't know. It's just a way of life, I think, for me. I don't know if I as long as my body will allow me to, I think I'll never stop it, because every time I go so far and train, I leave there with so much more better for my body. You know,
speaking of training, like, you also train others as well.
Yes. I don't teach jiu-jitsu professionally. Mm-hmm. I'll train jiu-jitsu for, you know, people in the film industry. That's where my interest lies. Mm-hmm. If you were to say, you know, I like, if you invited me to come to your school to teach a jiu-jitsu seminar, I would love to. That's kind of my thing. Do I want to teach on a regular basis? That's just not my, you know. But I teach, you know, perform actors, actors, stunt people, so to say. I teach jiu-jitsu.
Fight choreography and wire work.
Fight choreography, wire work. I went up to San Francisco recently for a project in Napa Valley, and I had a couple of days off. So I advertised to some of the locals up there. I say, hey, I'm going to teach. I'm up here in San Francisco. I can teach a fight workshop if anyone's interested. And enough people confirmed, so we had a fight workshop. So the one thing that stood out to me was, I remember one of the actors from our shoot, you know, he was interested in coming. So I felt that he was a little maybe hesitant because, you know, he doesn't know who I was and this and that. And then I remember at the end of the fight workshop, he was smiling and happy. And he just said, I'm so glad I came.
Right on.
Yeah. And, you know, because they learned a lot. You know, I have 30 years of experience in the film industry, in, you know, not just in stunts, but, you know, working in films, because you learn so much about, you know, it's just the natural progression. You're going to learn about how directors work and how they communicate with others and the safety on set. You learn a lot of things in a career, 30 plus years. And you know, I've been pretty fortunate and very lucky to probably worked on over 300 TV and film projects. You know, so that's a career.
Gnarly, wow.
Yeah. in some big name projects and some no name projects. But each project I absolutely love because I get something out of each one of those. It's like, I get something anyway. So with all that knowledge that I've gained, I want to give back to this to the community. And if they're interested in learning, I said, come to the class. Here's what you're going to learn. If you're interested in I tell if you're interested in doing stunts, I'm going to teach you how to fight choreograph and sword work. If you're an actor, most actors today, if you want to be a working actor, I mean, look at the film projects that's for the auditions that's coming out. You're going for the John Wicks, the Avengers. Every actor has to be somewhat of a fighter. So if you exclude yourself, even the Avengers, they have fight choreography, they have stunt doubles, but they have to go through a training, an intense training session with the stunt team, because the stunt team or the fight team will put together the fight previous of what they want the fight to look like. Once it's okay through the director okays it, then the fight team they shoot a video rehearsal, or they call it a pre-visual concept. So we basically know what the fight's going to look like, and there's camera angles and there's edits and everything. So it's pretty, and sometimes there's costumes and wardrobe involved. Sometimes there's not, but basically you know the beats or the rhythm of the fight sequence. So then we have to teach the actors. So even actors should know how to throw a punch. We're not trying to make you a Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee, but if you want to work,
it's got to look good though. You got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, this last job, some actors were able to catch on how to slap or pretend to slap a stunt slap. Some actors were not able to catch it.
Okay,
so
I get that. Yeah. Where can we find more of you, or if somebody's interested, like what's your website, what's your Instagram?
My website is William Leong, Leong, stunts with 2 S, STUNTS.com. So it's www. I don't know if you have to say www anymore.
I don't think so.
Everyone kind of knows it's the World Wide Web. WilliamLeongStunts.com. That's my website. The Instagram is Will Leong Stunts. WILL. I think it's Will Leong Stunts. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my Instagram, and you have to. I think I keep the page private just because I don't want those numbers to blow up. I remember going to Brazil last year to choreograph this movie, and it's with one of their. I think this actor, he's a celebrity in Brazil, and he said, "Man, when you work here, you're going to get so many people, requesting." And sure enough, I got all these requests from Brazil, and I went, "I don't know these people. I don't." Anyways, I'm kind of a private guy, so
keep it small.
I just kind of
small.
Yeah, a little bit private. So, but no, fight classes. If anyone was interested in fight classes, I would love to teach a fight class here. And if anyone is interested, contact Professor Erik and set it up with him, and then he'll contact me, and we can set something up.
We'll set something up then.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, contact him. And it could be either a wire class, a fight choreography class, the jiu-jitsu, you guys got that all taken care of. But fight choreography class, how we choreograph film fights, and with weapons, how to disarm weapons. That was actually.
Will, I'm sorry not to cut you off. Do you remember many years ago you came to coach me at a tournament?
I remember.
You and Mark rather.
Yeah.
And it was at a fight to win, I believe. Do you remember that match?
I do remember.
That was really cool. I did a tournament. I forget where it was. It was maybe somewhere in Orange County, and it was like on a stage. There were fireworks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I think it was also in the middle of the week. And I was like, hey, can anybody come coach me? And Will and Mark Armstrong from HQ came to go coach me. And it was really cool, dude, to have and there was thousands of people. It was really cool. And I remember winning that match in a minute though, and I felt so bad that I had you guys come out because it was 2.5, 3 hours in traffic to get there.
It was quite.
And
the drive.
match was nothing. I killed the guy instantly. But it was still cool. We all hung out afterwards and like enjoyed like a wonderful show. But I do remember that's crazy. I kind of forgot about that. And then I remember like, oh, you were in my corner right there. And he was very happy, very proud. And I think maybe that was the first time you've ever seen me compete.
It was actually.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What I remember about that was you asked me to kind of corner you, and I was honored to do that. So I remember being on the floor with my arms on the mat and screaming at you. I remember, and then at one point I think I shouted out a technique. I can't remember what it was, but let's just say, for example, uma plata, which is basically Portuguese for shoulder blade, shoulder lock. So I think I screamed out, uma plata, uma, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And sure enough, 10 seconds later, you caught the guy in uma plata. And I went, yeah! If ever I felt validated for my jiu-jitsu, you just did it, right? So after the match is done, you come over and I said to you, and I told you, uma plata, and you did it. And you looked at me and says, oh, I couldn't hear a single thing. That deflated me.
Yeah.
I said, oh man.
Well, you know my game. You know what would have worked for you would have worked for me. So you probably mentally made me do it somehow, some way.
No, what it was we were all on the same page because we knew the rope, the path, right, in jiu-jitsu. But basically, you knew what you had to do, and I was just kind of shadowing you, telling you what I would have done at the same time you were doing it.
You're my choreographer for that.
No, but you knew what to do, and but it was kind of I take it more as a in term of endearment because it was funny for me that I was shouting like as if I was the Yoda, we mind met somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
But basically you knew what to do. That's why you're the champion. You knew what to do.
Thank you very much.
But it was fun just being there in your corner.
Well, I always, I think we train, or you said you train 25 years there, 3 days a week at least. I see you all the time, and we always talked about doing something, getting some. I know you've been to the academy a handful of times, but thank you. You're always a personal mentor to me, and it's been an honor to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you. I'm really honored to be here. I think we tried for probably almost 6 months to a year to get me here, and I was either out of town I remember last year you trying to get me here, and I was in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm glad it worked out.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate that, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. You guys having a good time?
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad I came here.
Good.
I was nervous at first, and I was like, oh, I'm a little nervous here, and talking on a microphone. I'm not used to this, but anyways, you guys, I got relaxed, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Once you start getting relaxed, it all starts coming out, right?
Yeah.
Good, man. So you got a huge history. You got this whole stuntman thing you do. You kind of do a little bit of everything, man. Just a little bit of everything. You've been through a lot of stuff, and not to mention through Jean-Jacques' school, you've kind of learned a lot too, and you've been able to touch a lot of celebrities and kind of be around things that most people just don't see. Like people in the Midwest, they don't get to hear stories like this. Like, man, wait, you were rolling with who? Like you worked with who? And it's like these big name people and stuff like that. People that have had such a big impact on the world. Like Joe with his podcast.
Oh yeah,
huge impact. Just like being around people like that. And I think that's something to say, and I think that's pretty cool to hear. Especially like your story with Steven Seagal and stuff like that. So. Some good stuff, something to learn from. You know what I mean?
When I was a kid, I fantasized about getting into the movies, being an action actor, but I never thought it would come true. And I remember dreaming about, I want to be in the movies, and that's just what I wanted to do as a career. And now that I've kind of am working in the film industry, it's so much fun for me that because I don't, most of us don't work every day anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to let this go.
Right on.
It's a dream come true, and I just don't want to wake up to this dream.
That's an amazing way to live your life.
Yeah, I'm blessed. If I work, I'm blessed. If I don't work, you have a day off. So do what you want to do. Go to the gym, train. But I really don't call it work. It's work. But and you just got to be smart about it. It's like any other business. You don't go inside just say, oh, I want. It's a professional career. A lot of money is riding on this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of safety. There's some lives and injuries. So you want to be sharp, and the sharper you can be, and the more well-rounded you can achieve your goals. I grew up in San Francisco. I thought I was going to get married, buy a house in San Francisco, have a family. And, I was lucky enough to follow my dreams, come to Hollywood. When you were mentioning about someone in the Midwest, they don't know what's going on. And, I didn't think I was going to be able to be a stuntman. And working with Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Tom Cruise, and it's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good, guys. So we're going to wrap up this podcast. You've heard it from Will. 2 Jean-Jacques black belts in the house. You guys going to roll after this?
I think you got to get going, right?
I got to get going.
Yeah.
You got to get going? All right.
That's a
Well,
good excuse.
Maybe one day I can roll with you, bro.
Maybe tomorrow,
You
Friday, I'll see
teach
you
me a
try
thing or two. I'm under this guy, so he's been teaching me something.
Yeah,
Something.
Well,
Get a
he's
little bit
he's a good instructor.
He's a
so,
great teacher.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, it was a pleasure to have you. And until next time, guys, get up, get after it, and get some.
Bitch, don't get too comfortable. Better not get too comfortable. Better not get too comfortable. Yeah, bitch, don't get too comfortable.